Leftover lasagne.
Leftover lasagna.
Lasagna? No way.
It's a type of sandwich.
Some kind of gross pasta.
Leftover Lasagna is a
podcast
hosted by
my
Nitin
church
Sundar and Tony Uncle. Leftover Lasagna.
Very funny name.
Hello and welcome to Leftover Lasagne. In a year where Oxford University Press has chosen rage bait as the word of the year and Merriam-Webster Dictionary has chosen slop as the word of the year, referring to subpar content created by AI. This is a podcast that combines the two and takes the power away from the machines. You could call this podcast Rage Against the Machine, except neither of the hosts has any clue about music. I am Tone Deaf Tony, and joining me is Nightless Nitu, not in shining armor. Say hi, Nitu.
Hello, Tony. Here's to more, manually generated slop as we continue to plod the interwebs with leftover lasagna. After a 2 month and 1 week long break, which is probably the longest break leftover lasagna has taken so far. But we are back.
Wow, I'm glad you've been counting down the days since the last leftover lasagna
Counting up.
episode. Like counting up. It's on the up and up without leftover lasagna. But yeah, it's been a while, man. The fact is that we've met physically since the last leftover lasagna happened. When you attempted a what do you call it? Catching pegs that drop from a height and in random order. What is that thing called? Does it have a name? We will insert video here. And then you bettered
Yeah.
it as well. Right?
Yeah.
We will only include your video, not mine.
Should include everything. Okay, so we will of course include the video, but for the audio listeners' benefit. So Tony and I met at Fort Kochi in Cochin before Tony, of course, flew away to Australia, which we will talk about. So Tony now lives in a different continent, down under. He is bringing the thunder down under. But as part of Tony's grand extended send off into the down under, we caught up in Cochin. And we were roaming the streets of Fort Kochi with Emma, Tony's daughter, when we came across this street side game / stall arcade game of sorts, which is basically a semicircular, or I would say 270 degrees kind of metallic circle that is held, at about head height, from which there are a bunch of pegs that are hanging, right, which have iron tips, so they are stuck to the metal. And there are 10 of those pegs that are arranged, around that circle. And through an electrical contraption, those magnets are released at a random order. So one after the other, those pegs start falling down, and you don't know which peg is going to fall down when. And the game is to try and catch as many pegs as you can, right? So you are basically crouching low below that circle. You're unsure which peg is going to fall, and suddenly one of them is going to fall off somewhere in that 270-degree ambit around you, and you catch it before it hits the ground. And then a few seconds later, another one falls, and so on, right? So yeah, in Cochin, you had to pay 20 rupees to play this game. I think there was a guy, in like one of those. Have you seen those things where people get their knives and nail cutters and all to sharpen? There is that wheel that is spun, sparks.
Correct.
So this contraption that he had looked like one of those things on a vehicle. He was pushing it around, and he had parked it on that street, and it was there. So both Tony and I, of course, played this game in Cochin, and videos will be included without any comments from our sides on the catching abilities of your respective leftover lasagna chefs.
No, I think it's fair to say on the day in Fort Kochi, you swallowed more pegs than me, and the previous night I swallowed more pegs than you. Adichu Pusai.
Adichu Pusai.
So Nitu, while the video has been included, I think this is time for us to say now.
No, so I just wanted to make one. I wanted to make one.
I'll let you come back. We'll do it in random order, like pegs dropping from here and there. Catch what you will at the end of the day. It is your skill, not ours. In the 270-degree ambit around you, surround sound.
Armpit of ambits, yeah.
Yeah. So what I wanted to say was that as of 25th October. I've met your full family, including your parents and Shruti and Milan. and Mithun, and you've met my full family, including my
Meet
parents
cute
and
is
my
done.
brother. And now we are also wearing the same watch. Hold it up. Hold Casio. I think it's high time that we announce to the world.
This is the CCS podcast in the history of podcasts. Just as everything was coming together, you left the country, Tony, and went away to a different continent.
Our plan this year to record more episodes than last year for both Leftover Lasagna and Bits and Pieces.
Is this a
And after
2026 plan?
having
Because it is easy to pull it off in 2026. We have set the bar low in 2025.
after having told our listeners last year that my Australia plan is off, and then the recording on the 16th of December from regional Victoria.
Ballarat.
This has been the year where plans best laid by men have gone what oft
I'm not quite.
Agnew oft Jonathan Agnew, dude. What is that word oft?
Askew.
As no best laid plans of men and mice.
And what happened
Come
to
on.
Askew.
No,
This only happened to them.
no.
Best
Best laid
plans, quote.
often
go alright, man.
That's it.
See, even the proverbs are not going to plan. This is the problem.
So which brings us to our topic, right? Briefly to introduce it before we go on another tangent.
Yeah. Is there any episode of Leftover Lasagne? Leftover Lasagne is very the Monty Paneser of podcasts. We have already said that. We are doing the same podcast multiple times.
You to explain the context, since we've got
Monty Paneser, former English left arm spinner, cricketer, for people who are wondering what a left arm spinner is, was a middling to somewhat above average bowler who had a few moments in the sun, including playing a big, a dominant role in England defeating India. In India in 2012, which was a rare thing back in 2012.
Simon Harmer says hello.
Yeah, that's what. It was a rare thing back in 2012. Now, of course, everyone comes for fun and defeats Gautam Gambhir's Indian team in India. But so Shane Warne, the late great Shane Warne, also another famous spinner, once said about Monty Paneser.
Another famous spinner mentioned in the same breath as Monty Paneser, because why not?
Yeah, sadly, that's what
We are inclusive like Delhi Capitals.
So Shane Warne said about Monty Paneser that the reason he did not have a great extraordinary career, but had an average to middling career, was because he did not play different matches, but every match he played was basically the same match over and over again. So he basically was somewhat limited as a bowler. So yeah, Leftover Lasagne is a bit like that.
What is the actual quote? Did you bowl the same?
He played the same match over and over again, right? Like,
No, I think it's same over or same. Okay, let's get this right.
Shane
Let's
Warne.
not let this go awry.
Same test 30 times. He hasn't played 30 different test matches, but he has played the same test 30 times, implying a lack of development.
Okay, so the topic for the day, briefly, is that I find myself in Australia against the plans that I've made.
So Tony now lives in the town of Ballarat, which is in the outskirts of Melbourne, right? And he's been there for
Outskirts of Victoria.
over-
So Ballarat is actually the third largest city in Victoria, if you want to get technical. Hello, Bharat Sundareshan. But anyway.
So Ballarat is like the Hosur of Australia, right? So it is both in the outskirts of Karnataka and Bangalore, much like Ballarat is in the outskirts of.
But this
Melbourne
was Canberra, where I went to last year, so that's different because it like both New South Wales and Victoria can claim. Because Canberra was set up only so that Melbourne and Sydney don't fight over which is the capital, so it's like in the middle of both.
Right. Yeah. Just like Trevor Noah and Andrew Huberman were fighting over who hosts the better podcast. And so Leftover Lasagna came to say, okay, you guys stop fighting. We are the best podcast. Yeah, go on. Sorry.
Yeah. No, so yeah, against all plans I had, I find myself in regional Victoria. And to be honest, like there are many fun things about this, right? But like I find myself in a situation in my career where I can take a career break, right? Like I can easily like chill for 6 months or a year if I wanted to. But there is something inside me that is not letting me do it. It's probably also because I've seen people who have taken career breaks and how their lives have panned out. But also, we live in that era which is like the butt crack of the weird left ass cheek of our parents who lived through one career, one company, and dedicated their lives to it. And on the other side, you have like Gen Z and Gen Alpha who are going to go through multiple careers and like are okay with it and have opted out of it, right? And we feel, or I feel like as a millennial, that we are exactly in the butt crack and getting the worst of all of it, where you feel responsible, you have to put
Mm.
food on the table, but also um, because like also this is the age of AI, right? And there are only two types of careers that AI has disrupted. One in which industries or careers where people have a lot of experience, and the other where people have no experience, right? So
Say more, explain. What do you mean by that?
so if you consider, like, let's say someone taking up law right now, because it's probably one of the careers that has kept pace with how much capitalism has changed the game in terms of affordability of a house, or the life that boomers had, basically, right? Like you could buy a house, you could settle down and stuff like that. Whereas like most careers have not kept pace with the advances and inflation of capitalism. Lawyers definitely have, right? Like law on average has advanced much faster than inflation has. um, but at the same time, if you're therefore choosing a career in law right now, it's also probably the industry that is going to be most disrupted by AI, because all entry level jobs are basically grunt work, right? Where you're looking at
Mm.
precedents of what judgments are there and like what clause in this particular thing needs to be looked up. So realistically,
Yeah.
if you have an AI or a custom AI that
Mm.
has access to every law that is applicable in the region, plus all cases that have been litigated in that region, you basically can replace entry level uh, lawyers, right?
Yeah.
Because they're not going to court. They're basically feeding up to a couple Sybil or anyone else, and you're basically like short circuiting the process, right? Instead of like 20 interns or 20 entry level advocates, now you just need one who will just verify the output that the AI has given you to say that it's not hallucinating this particular instance or whatever. The other set of people who find themselves most vulnerable at this point is like people who grow up thinking that they'll have one career, one company, and then suddenly find themselves around the age of 40 saying that
Mm.
what we've done for the most part of our life is make work. And if someone actually sort of intelligently deploys AI or like takes advantage of the advancements in technology, you are very much replaceable, right? Because you don't need like status updates, I
Yeah.
don't know, three times a day, right? Like, so you're finding yourself at a position where manager is actually become a bad word, right? In that sense. So, which means that going forward, it is clear, right? That the generations that follow will have to do multiple careers, right? It's going to be like not necessarily what you know, it's how you learn and adapt to situations. Whereas we find ourselves in this unique point in time where we have access to more knowledge than anyone else in human history, but also more
Don't know what to do
angst
with it.
than, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Correct. What do we do? You mentioned, yeah, you are at that stage in your career where you can consider taking a career break and you're holding back. I'm at that stage in my career break where I can very well think about getting back into a career.
Super.
But it is my anxiety that is holding me back. So between the two of us,
Mhm.
we have covered
Yeah,
all
there
bases.
you go.
I agree with everything you said. You mentioned that it's eating at the extremities, right? You said it's the people either who are very new to work or people who have been very experienced who are likely to get
Yeah,
obsolete. I think that's it's just that it has started at the extremities, and over a period of time, I think AI is going to start eating into at least whatever corporate structures that we have seen and experienced in the last, I don't know, so many years that we've been working, plus maybe the last 30, 40 years of capitalism and post-capitalism. It is going to eat every or rather it's going to cannibalize jobs at every level is my sense.
yeah.
And
So
people have to find new ways to
Correct.
to be
No,
effective.
I
Yeah.
again, like all leftover lasagna episodes, is not ground that we've not covered. It's just that like we're framing it in a different construct, but also without ever having spoken about it to each other. It's basically like we will fuck around on this podcast and you will find out if it was worth your time or not. And usually the answer is no. But basically three things, right? One is that what if 2025 has taught me anything is that like your plans have no meaning or value at all,
Of
right? Like
course, that we already knew. Yeah.
you like yeah so thank fucking god, like I wasn't tied down to a huge mortgage in a house in Mumbai or a flat or whatever, which would have meant that I would have like had to continue doing what I did for the rest of my life without, and with more anxiety there, saying where will the next mortgage payment come in if I was laid off as a mid-level manager or in that sense, right? And the other thing being that I am also in a position where I am reasonably comfortable that I can take a break for a year, right? Like I know like
Mm.
my savings will tide me through, but yet I am like anxious about taking it. And the third thing being that by dint of circumstance, I find myself in a new situation, right? And
Mm.
I think we've discovered this on a discussed this on a previous leftover lasagna episode, like everything else, is that the only way to make new sort of memories or like to slow down how you feel like you're aging is for your brain to record new memories, new routines, right? Because beyond school and college, you get sucked into the vortex of the sameness of every day and you don't notice how time passes, which is why time flies once you like sort of pass out
Yeah.
of MBA and stuff like that, right? So now I discover the joys of actually experiencing a country new at an age where no one's supposed to, right? So I've been thrown into this place where
What do you mean by no one's supposed to? As an okay, you mean like it's people don't
in
generally
traditionally
relocate to
like
a country
yeah,
at this
exactly.
stage. But well,
Yeah,
both of us did it at pretty much the same age.
yeah. Yeah, correct. Correct. Yeah, of course. That's why we're doing
We
the
are
podcast,
exceptional
you
people.
know. In case you don't know, we are awesome and proud of it.
Yeah.
No, but
Yeah.
the point is like you're playing the game at a much higher difficulty level, right? Because I'm still doing the calculation of the conversion from Indian rupee to AUD, and like incidentally, this Sunday when we were playing Wilty, Mohan K chided me about my choice of cap because it said AFC Collingwood or something, which is apparently a AFL team, right? And
Yeah.
basically, my response is at this stage in my life, my favorite AFL team is whichever team has merch on sale at Kmart, right? Like uh, it is a much more innocent choice that you can make without riling about how horrible is it
Yeah.
that there was a terrorist attack in Sydney this week. While of course it is horrible, it's the worst terrorist attack Australia has had, but it's never had one in the last 50 years, right? Like, except one random guy who shot people in Tasmania, which
Yeah.
led to gun reforms and whatever. So, I
Yeah.
think the advantage is that when you're forced into a situation, as opposed to making an active choice of it, you feel better equipped to handle it in some senses, probably, which is really the crux of the topic.
Correct. Correct. Because as opposed to making a conscious choice, and taking one of the two routes ahead of you, you feel
Yeah,
that you actually sometimes feel more in control if you've gone with the flow and landed up in one of the two, and
correct.
you know,
And you have no alternative.
and you have no alternate.
This is why all of our parents have stayed married despite arranged marriage because someone else forced it on them.
Because what else is there? Yeah, correct. It is actually
Yeah,
true. Firstly, yeah, Bondi Beach. I was almost exactly a year back when we
yeah.
did the big bits and pieces picnic to Australia. Of course, Tony was the notable exception there. All of us had to get visas to go to Australia. Tony had a visa and refused to come to watch the Boxing Day
I
Test
was
match and the
done
New
with
Year Test.
Australia apparently in
Yeah, right.
2024.
1 year later, now we here. Oh, I spent one of the most beautiful days of that trip on Bondi Beach, which is like one of the prettiest places. So much of vibe, energy, and just pure happiness around the New Year time.
And for the benefit of whoever has not been to Bondi Beach,
Yeah.
and I've been like 10 years ago. It's not like a beach in India. It's actually a very small beach, right?
It's a
It's
small beach.
like
Yeah, yeah. It's
it's
pretty small.
very
Yeah.
small, man. Like when they say
Yeah.
Bondi Beach, you're imagining like one like endless stretch in Sri Lanka where you can like walk the horizon and like you can view the sunset from. That's not Bondi Beach is
Yeah.
very small. It's just crowded as fuck. It's beautiful, but
Yeah.
also like yeah,
Yeah, yeah, at this time
yeah,
of the year it gets very crowded also. That's true.
yeah,
Yeah. AFL cap, right? We are obviously talking about aging in the age of the internet, right? Or growing old with the
yeah.
internet, which is what you and me have experienced. So when we were young and the internet was young in our lives, we knew about ASL, which is age, sex, location. And now you're wearing AFL cap after going to Australia, which is age, flex, location.
Correct.
Yeah. Anyway, that's
All
what
of
we
this is
discussed.
leading to FML, which is we've uniquely arrived at a point where we have more access to knowledge than anyone before ever has, and we've also arrived at it at a time in our lives when we know that we know nothing, right? And this is
Yeah.
essentially the challenge of when we talk about like a lot of people who would have gone with the flow and like taken the corporate route and then were like, yeah, there's no point to this, and like you either burn out or you're like, I'm going to take a break, as opposed
Yeah.
to us who were skeptics to begin with, and we were arrived at the same point saying, you know what, maybe I should take a break. But also like you've sort of seen the other side where taking a break is not necessarily the answer, right? So that's I mean, I'm throwing this out to you, Nitin, to help solve this problem for me, because my operating idea of life is that I would have lived a much better life if I was advising someone else, right? Like I would have killed it if I were living your life. But when it comes to my own thing, it becomes a lot different. So yeah, this is what I'm grappling with right now. And I don't know what are the frameworks that you use to evaluate and
No,
make
no.
sense of
Let's
my life.
let's actually dig deeper into your whatever the confusion that you're embodying right now. The job that you held, obviously, you've moved with your job, right? So you've well,
For
obviously,
now,
your
yeah.
setting is new for now. Yeah, you're in working for the same team, but working from a different geography. So, and from whatever I've heard from you, or whatever I've learned from you over the years, it's you actually enjoy your work more or less, right? You enjoy your team. You've built fair amount of cash and credit inside your company, and they've actually been very well, the levers might have moved slowly. They've actually been very supportive and helpful in
Oh yeah,
getting you to
100%. Incredibly
relocate
so.
to a completely, yeah. And from what I hear from you now, even now your work transition itself is not something that is bothering you too much, right? Well,
Yeah.
obviously the geographical transition, the culture transition, getting kids settled into new schools and getting used to
Yeah.
everything new, not having the old social circle, of course, all of that is a huge, challenge, right? So given that, if I may actually put it that way, the one thing that is actually stable in your life in the last 3 months, it is probably your job. It is probably the work that you do.
Yeah.
Everything else is changed around you, right? So, and hence I want to know, where is this push coming for, or even thinking about, maybe a career break is what is needed, because that is the one anchor while everything else is shifted in a world around you. Yeah. So
No,
back to you.
it's a mix of things, right? Like the company that I work for. They've tried everything to make it much easier for me, and they've gone to the extremes of trying to see if they can have the same role in a different location and multiple other things. But I think at this point in time, the paperwork is dragged on too long. I don't think it's going to work out, right? Which is okay. Like the one thing that dysregulates me more than anything is not meeting people, which I realized like 5 years ago during COVID, right? Like I need to go into a workplace that offers me some sort of scenarios that I encounter, whether I actively participate in them or not, I can at least comment on them, right? Like you're at the end of the day, if you're a failed stand-up comedian looking for material, it has to come
Yeah.
from people around you, right? And it
True.
can't work if you're like stuck in a remote location and the only interaction you have is here. So therefore, I'm definitely not keen to continue working remotely for the rest of whatever, right? Like so, and I actively want to. So, but then the place that I find myself in is that forget the salary bit. It's that you have to sort of hustle to get a new role, or you sort of understand that in the interim, since you met me, for the last 4 to 5 months, I've been extremely dysregulated, right? I've been like all over the place, and I've felt it within myself that the grounding that I got once at least we landed back here and like got together as a family is important, but it's not the only thing, right? So that gives me the base level, but I also need something more because I need to keep my brain occupied. So yeah, it's a mix of things, man. It's like all of these
Hmm.
things, as much as you say that you're not a paperclip maximizer, right? Which is that you know what a paperclip maximizer is.
So do our listeners because we've spoken about it like 3 times.
Yeah, okay. As much as you're not a paperclip maximizer, you also derive identity from work, right? Like meaning from work, and like
Hmm.
you feel like good because you are engaging your brain to solve problems for a larger canvas than what it would be available otherwise. I think a larger canvas bit and the scale actually becomes important because I think when you're younger, you're happy solving problems for yourself. As you age, you're either pontificating as an uncle or you're actively playing a part in solving problems. And like the best place to get a bigger canvas is work or work related, right? Because tangibly or intangibly has an impact on a much larger thing than you would otherwise, right? Like I think that's what it is stemming from. No, but tell me about your sort of experience about stepping back from work and career break and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
and I'm sure in your immediate circle there have been multiple people who have. So maybe let's go from you, expand circles, and then look at what makes sense.
See, personally, from at least with me, while I worked for 15 odd years, most of the time I spent in regular corporate jobs were not happy years. I didn't enjoy the work I was doing. Maybe it's a personality thing. I definitely felt work pressure quite a bit, right? And maybe that has something to do with the way were in school, or the way you looked at authority figures growing up or something. I've mentioned this in the past on our podcast also. One of the the recurring nightmares that I have even now is going into an exam hall having prepared for the wrong exam, right? Or realizing on the day before the exam that you wasted the entire day without actually covering most of the portions, and then that anxiety kicking in.
This
So there
guy went
is
to IMA, guys, just to clarify.
yeah, well, let's not go there. Yeah, so I think there's some bit of that residue. I think is ingrained, deeply ingrained in me throughout. That I always felt pressured by work, by superiors, by having to survive the corporate kind of grind with oodles of imposter syndrome kicking in at every level. That it never was a happy kind of experience for me, right? It always felt like I was trying too hard to stay on the treadmill. I was always trying very hard to make my weekends count, to the extent that the Sunday blues was a very real thing for me for about 10 years, right? And so you basically, where you don't enjoy the second half of your Sunday because the next week is looming in front of your eyes, and you're already panicking about how you will go about it. So for me, when the opportunity to check out of corporate life presented itself, it was a no-brainer to jump out immediately and to enjoy the peace and quiet. So in that sense, a very, very different take. And at least in the peer circles that I engage with, or that we tend to engage with, this definitely is an exceptional kind of experience. Like, most people either know how to make peace with the with imposter syndrome, with the pressures and anxieties of work, or they know how to fake it until you make it, and make it a very core and integral part of their identity, that they probably don't realize that same level of pressure or anxiety, and it maybe even fuels them to function better in that environment. In my case, that was never the case. So, and hence, I was very happy to step out when I could. uh, like I said, now it has been like 3.5 years. So that said, it has not been 3 easy hunky-dory years, right? Like, having to, as I've mentioned this before, the social pressure of answering the question of what do you do is something that gets to me every single time, because I don't have a good clear answer, or an answer that would be considered respectable and would not lead to people judging me. I haven't found the middle ground or the solution to keep my own social wants at bay while also not having to go back into a full-fledged corporate role that would feed back the anxiety and pains that I used to go through earlier. That is the long short answer, and I think it's different for every person, right? And there are other people for whom I don't know, and that's the other thing, right? Like in the whole, the problem with our generation was grew up on Orkut,
Yeah.
discovered Facebook, and dropped it like a hot potato. While the new generation is obviously all on Instagram and
Why
TikTok.
are you not mentioning Twitter, which went to
I don't
formerly
even know
known
what to
as
say
Twitter?
about Twitter. Yeah, I don't know what to say. I don't know, formerly known as the microblogging site, whatever. But if you were to look at our age group, is 35, 40, 45-year-olds, the one social network where we engage the most, unfortunately, happens to be LinkedIn, right? Which is,
Yeah.
it's not Roblox, it's not Instagram, it's not TikTok. We don't have the dexterity to be smart and with it on these new age social
Hmm.
networks, and we drop the old ones, your Orkuts and Facebooks, along the way, because they are where at least Facebook is where our parents are sitting and doing whatever they're doing. So yeah, it's very tough to get genuine answers or go deep into understanding what everyone's challenge in this whole work life scenario thing is, because if you open LinkedIn, what you see from your peers is just a lot of posturing, right? And it's tough to
Yeah.
really understand what people are going through in their lives, because they're not trying to put it out there, because everyone has the game face on when they're on LinkedIn. This is probably true for
Yeah.
other social networks as well, but for some reason, LinkedIn grates more than everything else. It's the least authentic. You said one of the needs that you feel to not be working remotely and to go into an office environment is to have that social interaction, but also the social validation.
Hmm.
And like you said, you
Correct.
want your brain to
Yeah.
be engaged with people.
It's
The,
not necessarily all social validation, right? Here's the thing, that like you want
just
to
social interaction,
feel
right? No,
useful.
not
You
just
want to
work.
feel useful. Yeah.
You want to feel useful. Yeah.
By solving
The
problems. Yeah.
So the thing is, you can solve those problems sitting remotely as well, right? But the reason you want to go into an office and meet people is not that. You can solve very big problems working
Yeah.
remotely. I mean, a lot of us
True.
did
True.
during
True.
COVID, right? So, and it worked
Yeah.
fine at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
So this is the inherent challenge with work, right? We need because we only have 24 hours in the day, and we need 8 of them at least to sleep, and we need maybe, let's say, another 8 to do whatever we need to for our family, for ourselves, for our health,
Yeah.
for our
Yeah. Yeah.
entertainment, etc.
Yeah.
That remaining 8 hours that you have is the 8 hours that you need for your bank balance, for social
Yeah.
validation, and
Correct.
for social interaction, and to feed a feeling of purpose. Now, all those buckets need to get filled by this one big entity called work, and it is
Yep.
actually very, very hard to find something that you can do day in and day out for 8 hours a day that will
Correct.
consistently and happily feed all 4 of these buckets for you. And I think what a lot of people end up doing is they either are blind to the fact that 1 or 2 of those buckets are actually not getting filled at all. For some people, it might be the
Hmm.
bank balance. I think the
Yeah.
bank balance part people will know, but they will still do whatever is the best is that they can. That's the most easy one to know and address. But when it comes
Yeah.
to social validation, social interaction, and intellectual stimulation, there are people who probably would just be blind to the fact that 2 or 3 of those cups are not actually getting filled at all. But since work or whatever it is that they're doing is doing a very good job of filling the other two, they will let that kind of go. And then one fine day you wake up and you're 50 years old,
Yeah.
and
And
you reach somewhere. Yeah, and you're on the hedonistic treadmill and you're running a certain race which you don't even know where you are, where you started, where you're going.
and by they we mean we, right?
We
Because
mean
like we
we,
are
yeah.
equally close. Yeah. Just to clarify.
I'm the perfect example, right? So after spending 5 years at ESPN, where I was covering cricket, which was something that I
Hmm.
loved doing
Yeah.
genuinely.
Oh, okay. I
We,
think this is one second. One second. It can't be a footnote. I think you need to explain this.
we have explained this before. Okay, we'll
Okay.
explain
It's
it once
okay,
more.
man.
What is there?
Yeah. What is it?
Okay. Yeah, so 1 year out of IIM Ahmedabad, I took a break from consulting career. Circumstances aligned in such a way that I had to relocate with my wife from Singapore to Bangalore as it happened. And since I was in Bangalore and starting afresh, I thought, okay, why don't I just go and check out what's happening at ESPN Cricinfo, which was the biggest sports website in the world back then. And I ended up
Hmm.
spending 5 years there, like in a variety of
Yeah.
roles, doing match reports, ball by ball commentary,
Yep.
manning the desk as a lowly sub editor, because that was not a career that I trained myself for at all, right? And so I was I took like a massive pay cut to do
Yeah.
that job for 5 years because I thought at that age I was quite young. It was the only time where I thought I could actually give a shot at doing something of that sort. It seemed like career suicide. It probably was career suicide because it took me a while to get back on track after that. But after 5 years,
Yeah.
I did move on from there and got into a slew of corporate roles. At first at Amazon, then at Mintra, and then eventually at InMobi Glance for about 5 years. And that is the 10-year period I'm talking about, post ESPN, where I
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely hated every single waking, working day of my life. While I was again,
Hmm.
at least from a salary perspective, I was back on track with where people would have expected me to be after, or where I would have expected myself to be after having done an MBA from the premium B school in the country.
Hmm.
So the point I was trying to make was
Finish.
like when I say they, obviously I'm talking about myself because I was
Hmm.
very happy for those 10 years to ignore the fact that the cup of, at least happiness was not getting filled, if nothing else. And the cup of, social validation and, the ability to kind of say, okay, this is what I do, this is what, keeps me gainfully employed through the day seemed more important to me than my own happiness and anxiety levels, right? And I was blind to it for 10 whole years and might have probably continued doing the same thing because what do I know better?
Yeah. Yeah. No, so I was just saying that in terms of like where we find ourselves, right? Like, so obviously, Andy Saltzman is in Australia right now because cricket is going on here. And before the whole terrorism thing, the most interesting news from Australia, which again, like, is not a country that people think of very often because it's so far ahead on the time zone scale and also gun control.
Ahead of its times. Yeah.
Ahead of its time is that they've banned social media for under 16s, right?
Yeah.
And so on the Bugle, Nish Kumar had a very interesting point, which was triggered. Like, I wanted to read this back because you mentioned LinkedIn. This is what Nish Kumar said, right? I'm reading it out verbatim because, like,
This is the from the Bugle podcast, which is co-hosted by Andy Zoltzman, who also is a cricket writer,
correct.
comedian,
ESPN
etc., and
cricket
someone
for
given that much.
confectionery stall stats guru.
One of
Correct,
the
right? So
funniest all-round guys in the world. Let's put it that way.
correct,
Yeah.
correct, yeah. For the three people who listen to us and also don't know Andy Saltzman. Yeah, let's clarify. And so Nish Kumar said on the Bugle, I think a couple of weeks ago, under 16s can't use social media. But what we then need to do is also introduce an upper limit on the ban. Because let's be honest, if you're talking about the damage caused by social media, obviously we have to talk about the children that have been bullied. But we also need to talk about all of the people above the age of 50 that have been radicalized. At one point, and this is going to be hard for people to believe, J.K. Rowling was a woman who used to write children's books. I know that's hard to believe. That is incredibly hard to believe. She was a woman who wrote children's books. And your aunt at one point believed that the earth was round. I know this is going to be hard to believe. At one stage, your uncle was capable of seeing a person of color in the street without saying, well, it's an invasion. It was possible. And if we are going to maintain the ban, I say we ban all over 50s from all forms of social media apart from LinkedIn. Because,
This is perfect, no? Like, do you see the symmetry here? AI is eating up the jobs of the youngest and the oldest people, is what you said. And now we are
yeah,
saying we need to ban social media for the youngest and the oldest people, right?
yeah.
So basically, replace social media with AI, and your life will be good if you're at the extremities. The problem with us, the middle generation, is that
Yeah.
we are consuming a lot of social media.
The butt crack generation. Wow.
The butt crack generation is doom scrolling through. Yeah, we've cracked the butt. We are doom scrolling through useless social networks, whether that's LinkedIn or
Yeah.
Instagram or whatever. And AI is not making us obsolete; it is just giving us a lot of anxiety,
Right.
and that's where we are. That is why we stick. Yeah.
No,
Beyond this, we
so
stick.
objectively, point I think is that the solution to a lot of work is not no work at all. It is finding ways in which you can be useful. And to do that on your own is a very, very difficult task, right? Like, it's not something that I'll be honest to admit that I can't do it, right? So here's the difference, right? Here's what Australia has changed for me is that it's made me slow down, right? And it happened as soon as I landed in Australia because, like, I flew with two kids alone. Uh, Please give me dad credits because like a 9-year-old and a
Yeah.
2-year-old, and like we flew Singapore Airlines, so like
Yes.
uh 14-hour flight with a stopover in between, and then like I was like, okay, I need to get Rafa's pram, right? Like, because like the pram is usually delivered as soon as you exit the aircraft at the gate.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I landed in Melbourne, and they were like, yeah, it'll take 20 minutes. Please wait at the level above in the elevator. First reaction, 20 minutes? What the fuck is going on, right? Like, Blinkit delivers in 10 minutes, man. What are you
Even
saying?
Indigo takes off in 20 minutes.
And so then I was sat there next to like a person who was disabled or differently able and needed a wheelchair, and like me, and then Rafa and Emma looking at all the planes taking off and landing and like having a great time. And and the place is spick and span, like clean straight lines, everything arranged properly. And also like it's, and I can see behind the scenes the guys who are trying to get us a pram, and the women, like they're all talking to each other, and they're all of different nationalities, different origins, communicating with each other, trying to get the damn thing going, right? And you can see that they're short
Yeah.
on people by at least 20 people. And like I think it was the juxtaposition of like this clean geometrical shapes in the airport and the
Mm.
softness of the people. I was
Mm.
like, why the fuck am I in a hurry for like what? Right? Like,
Yeah.
here my kids are like, I mean, obviously anxious and excited to meet their mom after like 3 months, but also like looking at everything that's happening around them with a sense of wonder. And like, you can slow the fuck down, right? Like,
Yeah. That's
it's not
beautiful.
something
Yeah.
new. Yeah. And then again, as we sort of landed here, there are a bunch of rules that you automatically follow, right? Like, so I think Nitin, you and I, if we are in India, we can attest to the fact that we're not the most disciplined drivers, right? We are optimizing for time to reach destination, so therefore like cut lanes,
That
like
doesn't mean we are indisciplined. That doesn't make us
correct,
indisciplined.
correct. Yeah, yeah. We
Yeah.
find ways to get ahead, right? Like, but here I find myself, I've never honked once. I think I've heard like two honks in the last 28 days in Australia.
Yeah. Are you
And
driving,
I'm
by the way,
significantly
already?
in discipline. Yeah, yeah, of course. You can drive for the first 6 months with your first 6 months. You can drive with Indian license or
Beautiful.
English translatable
Lovely.
license. Yeah, and I'm significantly in discipline. And like Rosanna is the most non-punctual person I've ever met, which used to be the cause of a
Ooh.
lot of angst in the initial time that we dated because my dad was a stickler for time. Okay. Eventually I got over it, but now she's the one who's like, I have to reach office at 9. Do you not understand that people here value time? We have to leave early. Right? And Rafa was the most rascalest person ever who would like either want to sit in the front seat or want to sit in my lap while I was driving. But here, introduce a car seat and the fucker is happy to sit there. Like he'll snooze off in 2 minutes. He'll like want to be in the car seat and stuff like that, right? And Emma is beautifully fit into school. She's like very happy. Like she's singing that the song that is their school song is "We Are Australian," right? Like which is "We are one, but we are many, and from all the lands we come together. We share a dream," and all that. Like beautiful, right? Like so, just by dint of being put in a position where these are not choices, like
Yeah.
lane discipline or punctuality or car seat or whatever.
You got railroaded into good behavior, basically. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that happens also. So it's like a constant. I think it is an impossible thing to answer, which is why it makes perfect sense for a leftover lasagna episode. Is that if you ask yourself in your ongoing life, how much would you change as a person? And I think the modern family answer is 15%.
Okay.
There is a modern family episode which is called 15% is the extent to which a person
Ah,
can change. But
interesting.
you find yourself in a new circumstance, right? Like whether as a refugee or as an immigrant or as a parent at close to 40 years of age, you're saying, actually, you know what? 70% maybe, right? Like, I am like anal about cleanliness now. I'm washing dishes. I'm like
Wow.
doing stuff on my own. I mean, it's not like anything that someone shouldn't do, right? It's just that, like, by way of reframing from having like five different people for house help to having no one, you automatically sort of get into these things.
Up
So
level.
I think it's
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
interesting. Going forward, you cannot say that I've had like one career or one company or one way of living. It's going to be multiple. So I think in some sense the shock to the system is good, right? Or that's how I'm rationalizing it
Always.
at least.
True
So
that. That is true. That is true. Very good.
yeah.
Oh, that's beautifully put out, right? And yeah, if everyone had the sense to slow down and stop and smell the roses, things would be much nicer. Some of the best moments in life are when you're sitting through what seems like an impatient moment with your child and looking at the world through their eyes, right? And yeah, I think that's the kind of moment that you had sitting in the airport waiting for the pram, looking at planes
Yeah.
while in the middle of all of that.
No, at the same time, you come into a country and you have a fresh perspective, right? And you're like, I traveled to Brisbane for the test match with a couple of friends who are here already.
Yeah.
And so here's the funny thing, both Brisbane and Melbourne technically are on the eastern coast. Brisbane's more eastern than Melbourne. Brisbane doesn't have daylight savings time, right? Queensland doesn't have daylight savings time. Victoria has daylight savings time, right? And the obvious question is, why the fuck does daylight savings time exist to begin with, right?
Yes.
So
The worst
yeah,
invention in human history. That's how I would put it.
why do you feel so passionately about this?
So daylight saving exists as a concept. See, you disappeared. Oh, daylights
No,
are
no,
on.
daylights are night lights are on. Ping ball test match that one.
Yeah, so my problem with daylight saving is that it is a concept that is invented by the human race, but it is a concept that has been invented for a species that has the mental capacity of hamsters and not the human race. Because you would imagine that the 21st
So
century human
human
being
race,
can.
but in capitalist construct, which is basically a
Ooh,
hamster on a wheel.
running on the hedonist treadmill. Yeah, well played, well played. Yeah, you would imagine that human beings can understand that, sometimes it is dark, though the time is not, it's only 4 p.m., or that it is bright and it is still very early in the morning. I I would imagine that hamsters don't understand this concept, right? Because their circadian rhythms are kind
Yeah,
of held hostage by nature, so they don't realize.
yeah.
In fact, I think I'm being disingenuous. I'm probably being, insulting to creatures like hamsters because even animals know when seasons change, they change their behaviors, they hibernate, and they do this and that, right? So it's even their body clocks tend to adjust well to seasonal change patterns. So to imagine that human beings would need like the crutch of a clock that moves back and forth in order to help them deal with the change in seasons and the length of days is just odd to me, and it creates so much of confusion, right? When you're trying to plan things across time zones, when you're trying to tell people what the time is in wherever you are, and they need to do mental calculations. It's as it is hard enough with time zones, and on top of that you add like daylight savings where clocks move back and forth like twice a day, and people say they gained 1 hour and then they lost 1 hour of sleep, and I'm like, along with
Correct.
the fact that roads run left versus right, left hand drive, right hand drive, the fact that power plugs are different in different parts of the world, the other
Yeah.
irritating things that human beings are up to, I think daylight
Have we
saving would
covered
rank
this on a
up there.
leftover lasagne
Absolutely. No doubt.
episode?
At least
Yeah.
twice.
So I think like the other. So to
Ah,
be
you went to
honest,
Brisbane. What happened? You didn't tell.
currently
Huh, huh.
nothing much happened. It was okay. I went to a casino. I made $105 in a.
You had a better trip to Brisbane than the English cricket team.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. No, but generally, right, like right now, the happy place for me is the gym, right? Like where you're doing something and you're feeling good about it.
Excellent. We have both reached the same conclusion. Sport, physical activity is where it is at.
Yeah, so I was saying, see, yeah, my happy place is in the gym. And don't worry, I'm not threatening anyone with like topless pictures or Instagram stories of my workout. It's just that like putting in effort
Only
actually
LinkedIn
gives
updates.
you only LinkedIn. Putting in effort actually gives you a kind of at the end of the day a dopamine rush, which nothing else does, right? And like um, I don't think
Yeah.
anyone wants to like feel that place where they're not doing anything, right? So again, so the trade-off is between like, do you feel burnout? I don't think it's a binary between burnout and a sabbatical. For me it's always been like something in between, right? Which is what I'm grappling with, right? And Yeah, I think I'll continue to grapple with in
Yeah, yeah,
2026. No plans made because like what the fuck, like what's the point? But yeah,
yeah,
I hope to. I think the most rewarding thing about 2025 was because of the extended farewell that I have commanded. Is that I've got to say more goodbyes to people than I would have otherwise had, right? And like there is
yeah,
something beautiful about a goodbye is that you're forced to confront what people mean to you, right? And you get to tell them that to their face, and they get to tell you that with their words and actions. And I think that's another underrated thing is that we don't tell the people in our lives how important they are, right? Like we will continue to troll Hank because he's a kundi, but like occasionally, right, like if he were leaving not on an Indigo flight, we might also tell him that
yeah.
he's a lovely guy, right? So I think I got blessed with a lot of that in 2025.
No, this inside joke is worth explaining to our listeners, though who might appreciate this. So, Mohan Krishnamurthy, our good friend, also lives in Australia, as most people listening to this podcast know. He's been working on a project with universities in India, which meant that over the last couple of months, he spent a lot of time in India, and he was flying from one city to another. I think he spent some time in Hyderabad, some time in Delhi, some time in Bombay, some time in the other cities as well. When Mohan came to India, this is before the Indigo fiasco started or took off the way it did, right? And he was taking flights, Indigo flights, obviously, because those are the only flights you can take to many parts of India. His flights happened to be getting delayed or cancelled. He had all kinds of strange experiences, which we generally don't see on Indigo, at least, or we didn't used to see on
What
Indigo.
is the starting point, Nitin? Please explain.
Well, so we initially thought he's making this up, right? So he was on a flight from Hyderabad to Delhi, and he said, "Hey, I get into my plane with my ticket, and I find that there is another guy already sitting on my seat who has the exact same seat. He has a ticket or boarding pass to the exact same seat." I'm like, "What the hell is going on?" I said, "Hank, it's just bad luck. Indigo actually is one of the most operationally well-run airlines, and it has been known for its operational excellence in other parts of the world and all of that." And he was like, "What
And
are you
for
blabbering? This is."
showing other countries to poor Indians who would otherwise not flown
Yeah, I
to
doubled down and I
destinations
said,
like.
of course, this is, I mean, let's leave aside the last 3 months of Indigo, whatever has gone down. But it is true that Indigo has opened up a lot of sectors around the world, cheap
Vistas and
airlines,
avenues.
vistas and avenues. Anyway, so I told him all of that. And, I said that it is a no frills airline. Yeah, sometimes you might have issues, but it does a fairly good job of taking people from point A to point B in India at a reasonable price. And he was filthy with me. And then he said, the next flight that he took, which was also an Indigo, somebody got into the Delhi Hyderabad flight and the flight was about to take off. And suddenly that person got up and was asked to leave because the boarding pass he had was not for Delhi Hyderabad but for Delhi Bombay. So he had entered the wrong flight. And like Hank at this point is just making up all this shit. Right? And then shit truly hit the fan. Like I think a week or two after that is when people said, "Hey, okay, everything is not okay with Indigo. Things are
The
going
shit
completely
being
all right."
Hank and the fan being you.
Yeah. I was like, okay, it looks like Mohan basically came to India and jinxed the shit out of Indigo Airlines, and everyone in India now is paying the
Fun
price.
thing about
Sadly, yeah,
this is Mohan actually has his
yeah,
operations research prof who actually
yeah,
has a course on the best way to land a plane or like best way to fly, right? Like one of
yeah,
those TSP kind of problems which is solved. And like only
yeah,
in like he has 12 classes scheduled, then he schedules a bonus 13th class, and only in the 13th class does he reveal how to actually sort of optimally land planes. So it feels like this has been an elaborate advertisement
yeah.
for Mohan Krishnamurthy's operations
Yeah, I mean,
research
yeah, the
course.
best part is I was, as usual, pulling stats and facts out of my ass and throwing them at Hank and saying, he's just being a first world complainer after coming to India. And later I realized that, Hank has actually done a lot of research on airlines and flights and, optimal routing and operational excellence. And Hank is also one of those people who believes that, papers, scientific papers, etc., mean something. So he has authored a few and read many and threw all of that back at us. But of course, we still love Hank and Hank still loves us, though he's had terrible, terrible times with Indigo. But Tony, you mentioned your happy space now is the gym. I think we took the long scenic route, and you took a very scenic route from Cochin all the way to Australia to figure this out. But we have come to the same conclusion that, and this is the same conclusion for multiple questions, is that physical sport or physical activity really is the solution, right? It
Yeah.
actually pours. It fills multiple of those cups that we were talking about, right? It gives you a sense of purpose. It keeps you in great physical and mental
Yep.
health. It is a mood lifter,
Yeah.
of course, and it gives you social interaction as well. Maybe not at the gym if you're doing dumbbells by yourself, but that's a good place to start too. But generally, if you're
Yeah.
out there playing sport, you make friends. You're in the trenches with people from different
Yeah.
walks of life, trying to accomplish something that as a team,
Yeah.
typically, right? And in the last 3 years where I've not been working, the one activity that I've deeply invested time, effort, and just a lot of myself into is playing sport, playing
Yeah.
ultimate frisbee in Dubai, right? And yeah, the amount of time that goes into it has just only increased to the detriment of some of the other things. I think one of the reasons we are podcasting lesser, or I'm not feeling the anxiety to keep our podcast alive as much as I used to earlier, is because I'm like, okay, it's
Yeah.
fine if it goes, because I have something else that I'm able to pour myself into. Like I said, this also answers several of the questions that we've raised on this podcast. Is I think we have discussed this offline before, but I think it's worthy to point out on an episode where we talk about AI taking away jobs, right? So AI, the lowest hanging fruit is of course corporate bullshit, right? Which AI has already started taking. Like you spoke, the entry level jobs and the senior level jobs are both at threat, and I think over a period of time, the mid level jobs also will be. And we'll have to
Yep.
rethink what knowledge work really means in a world where knowledge
Mhm.
is freely available to everybody, or if even knowledge means
Correct.
anything,
Correct.
right?
Yep.
So that is the easiest low hanging fruit. Then come the arts, right? Some would say it's the last bastion. It would not fall. I am skeptical
Yep.
because already you're seeing, AI music, for instance, taking over, and the quality of the output has actually gone up, right? So you can actually now enjoy a Taylor Swift song that is not made by Taylor Swift. Of course, that is the paradox of how will you make a Swift song if Taylor Swift
Yeah.
herself did not exist? And if you draw the through line of AI music, in the future you will have a world where there are no musicians, and then there is no storyline, or there is no personality whose
Yep.
music you can actually ape. So then what does AI do? But leaving that aside, I feel arts are already at threat. The one bastion, I would say, the last bastion, actually, which will not be
The
threatened by
last
AI,
Sebastian.
the last Sebastian, Tony. I think the last frontier actually is sport, because we will
Yep.
never enjoy watching machines playing football against each other. The reason we invest into sport is because we understand the limitations of the human body and the human mind, and it's only fun because you're seeing human beings pitted against each other, trying to maximize the natural resources that they have at their disposal to outwit or outgun each other, working as teams, working with each other against each other. When Deep Blue defeated Gary Kasparov for the first time, it obviously made the headlines, right? Because it was the first time a computer could defeat a human being or whatever.
Yeah.
But if you follow chess, nobody is actually watching computers play human beings or computers play each other, because what is the fun or the story involved in that? Yeah.
Yeah. But do you know what we are actually watching in chess? Sarvagya Singh Kushwaha
Who be that?
um, has an yellow chess rating of 1572 in rapid
This is some
chess.
child,
You know
right?
how old he
This
is? Yeah.
seven,
He is
four,
3 years, eight
three.
months, and 19 days old. Right.
Well done to
So,
Sarvodaya
yeah.
and his
Yeah.
parents. Well
So,
done.
fuck the machines.
Yeah.
We will continue to make this podcast.
Sport is never going to be taken
Or
over by AI.
leftover lasagna, dude. Like, there is no way AI can ramble about in so many different directions without
I think
just
AI is only
following
going
lines.
for the gainful things. It's not going after stuff that is not worth replicating.
It is not just sharp, it is
AI
also
takes
useless.
AI takes good things and makes slop out of it. But if you feed slop into AI, then what is AI supposed to do? Maybe it'll give good things
Correct.
out of it. Right? Dear AI,
Oh,
please,
man.
what is that? Yeah, Copilot, please listen to Leftover Lasagna and see if you can come up with good podcasts as
Yeah.
output. Maybe
The
this is how we reverse engineer
Lord's cricket
AI, man.
ground has always been famous for its slope, but we are the unquestioned
Slow.
lords of slop. Yeah, right. So
This is the problem.
That's what
The
leftover
problem
lasagna
with
is.
leftover lasagna is we crack these kinds of jokes not one time, but every time. Every episode is basically the same episode. The Monty Python
Monty Python.
sliding down the Lord slope is what this podcast is.
The full Monty and the Monty Hall
The full
problem. All covered many times in leftover lasagna.
Well
Thank you
done.
for listening.
Absolutely.
Until
On that
next time.
note, since we spoke about sports, just just as a closing thing, which our listeners, this actually our three listeners would not know. Do you know that India won the squash World Cup yesterday? This is a real thing. I shared it on WhatsApp on one of the groups that we are on.
Was Deepika Pallikal one of the...
No, but Joshna Chinnappa still plays squash.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Which also I shared on, and she's part of the team that
Let
won.
me guess. Joshna Chinnappa won the mixed doubles with Leander Paes, who's also still playing.
This is like crossover lasagna.
Pace
Champion
is
of
pace.
mixed doubles means across sports here. Pace is pace. Yeah.
Pace is pace.
So this gets bizarre, more and more bizarre. Okay, the headline: the squash World Cup happened inside. Guess where the squash World Cup happened? The globe.
Uzbekistan.
No, this is not some Chindi tournament, by the way. There were like teams from Australia, there were teams from across Asia. There were like 13 or 14 different teams participated. The best teams in the sport, basically. I'll give you a clue. I don't think Pakistan participated. So now tell me where you think the tournament was held.
Bangalore.
It was held at Express Avenue Mall in Chennai. Like,
Oh, dude. Wait. Oh, insane. There is no way. Because in the interim, when you said that there is one thing that AI still can't replace, my answer was going to be cryptic crosswords, right? Also, because last month in November, I gave a talk about wordplay and stuff.
Yeah.
In one of these new format things called Lecture on the Rocks in Chennai, which our friend of the podcast, Gino, is listening to and is organizing it. And he kindly invited me to be the first lecturer. And the lecture that I gave was on wordplay through the years, also talking about how cryptic crosswords is the ultimate art form as far as wordplay is concerned. If you consider like three parameters, which is like elegance, fairness, and like inventiveness, right? And therefore AI can never catch up with it. And then you mentioned sport. And the fun thing is, I gave my lecture in Express Avenue in a pub.
Brilliant.
So yeah, there you go.
Well done,
Sport and cryptic crosswords. Undefeated
Express.
in Express Avenue.
So the last frontier is actually Express Avenue Mall in Chennai. Who would have thought? I believe there is one of the Satyam Cinema's second branch was actually opened inside that mall. Which of course later got acquired by PVR, so it's not.
I thought it was a new mall. It's not. There was only Spencer Plaza when I went to Chennai.
In the beginning, there was Spencer Plaza. India wins the World Cup. It is hosted in Chennai inside Express Avenue Mall, and Joshna Chinnappa is still playing squash. I'm like, hang on, this all seems made up to me, but it's true. So yeah, congratulations to the Indian
all your
squash
dreams
team.
are not squashed yet. So
indeed, yeah. Yes.
Hopefully, we'll see you sometime soon again.
Yes.
But this has been episode 45, I think, of Leftover Lasagne. But also, like on Spotify Wrapped and bunch of the other raps, right? Like it was crazy to me that a bunch of people actually like DM'd to say that they were like Leftover Lasagne featured.
Disappointed with the drop in volume. Yes, thank you so much for continuing to listen. I would say that maybe that's why we've got back eventually, right? And the fact that we had a few pings on social media from
Jim was not doing it.
So
we wanted more.
So let's bring this back to life. So we are back. Probably the last episode for the year, but 2026 we will do more episodes. Let's not overpromise.
I think also like this was probably like a getting back to the groove episode. So thank you if you've listened thus far, and we'll probably come back. And if you have ideas for more episodes for Leftover Lasagne, do write it.
Yeah, if you don't want to keep listening to the same things again and again, please let us know what else you would like to listen to, and we will come.
DM us on Instagram or X, but mostly Instagram. I am at
LinkedIn.
Noty NOTYTONY, and Nitin is at Nitins KNITTINS. Right, like We may or may not link this from the show notes because Nitin is editing.
Or just DM us on LinkedIn because, like all 40-year-olds, that is where we are very active.
There you go. There you go.
All right.
That.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.